We love Applebee's in Farmington, and we love Tuesday nights. Cole's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98 The Boot on a wonderful Tuesday night at the Applebee's in Farmington. The smells are aromating throughout the restaurant. I cannot wait to get some food after we're done. Have a great conversation with the Central Rebels that's going to come later on in this Cole's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening, whether it's on the radio, whether you're online at mymoinfo.com, or whether you're streaming along Twitter as well. Griffin Weinberg, your host. Garrett Davenport wearing his blue St. Louis Cardinals jersey. Maybe some Albert Pujols magic coming along with that, too. And Chad Speaker, our fearless leader, joining us at the Cole's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. It was a great Friday night of football that we had, especially on regional radio, with some fantastic matchups. I started thinking just a couple of days ago that after Friday night was the first time I really started thinking postseason and district implications and conference matchups, because we did have conference games and there were some district games that happened as well. I started thinking to the future, and that really felt like, you know what, things are starting to get real with this season. It's only 4 weeks in, but we've had some good district games. We'll talk about some of them that we had. But I'm really excited for the future of this because we still have a lot of undefeated teams.
And kind of along those lines, Griff, I was going to head a little bit in the same direction because to me, the regular season is almost starting to feel a little bit like a tournament, like it's the postseason. And I say that because of, well, when we go through the results and then we look toward next week, we'll see about, we have these teams that are undefeated and they're actually going to start playing each other. There's only so long you can have all these teams because then they actually start playing each other. And we'll have a couple of those matchups this week. And then, on the other side too, we're going to have some matchups this week with like 1 and 3 teams, both teams at 1 and 3. And so it's almost like playing out the left side of the bracket. And it's just kind of the way that the season's working out so far.
Yeah, and I think it's great because there are going to be a lot of great matchups all over the place. You look so far at some of the district standings, again, early on, but Class 1, District 2, we have a lot of teams in there. St. Pius and Grandview, Crystal City's at the top of there. While St. Vincent, they're 4-0. They're going to be taking on another undefeated team in an old-time rivalry in Class 1, and a couple of really nice Class 4 District 1 games that we had. The Farmington Knights as well. We're going to be talking about an interesting game they have coming up on Friday. But Garrett, doesn't it feel like football is starting to feel less like it's, we're excited that it's back, but it's like, you know what? Things are happening.
Now it feels like every week is so important. And this is something we talked about before we went on air with the MAFC White Division. Last 3, District 1, everybody's going to be fighting for that conference championship, but also they're going to be fighting for district position. So it's very, very tight over there, that district, that conference. It just feels so important each and every single week, especially talked about every game. I love how the regular season is implemented here is because every game just feels so important.
Yep, every game matters. We've got 6 teams that are still undefeated in the listening area, and we're going to have even less this upcoming week because we have a couple of matchups between some undefeated teams. First, we want to break down games that we had on the radio airwaves this past Friday. Keep talking about it, how great they were. So we're going to step aside for a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about the J98 game of the week that did not disappoint. That's all coming next on the Cole's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Welcome back into the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. We got some great specials Tuesday night. As always, you can come in, get yourself a Mucho Bahama Mama. It's got Captain Morgan in it, maybe some cherry flavor. I think I see some lemon in there, too. That looks delicious. I may get one of those later on today. Got to try one of those. Garrett, you always got your Mountain Dew.
I got my Mountain Dew Dark Berry Bash. You only get it at Applebee's.
Cam's coming strong with the beverages.
We appreciate all of the fine workers here, and Amy Cousins for giving us a spot to talk about football. So let's break down what happened last Friday. The J98 game of the week was fantastic. Hillsboro and North County, the Hawks, they used their 21 unanswered points in the second half to get past North County by a final score of 31-10. After forcing a turnover on downs, Hillsboro then fumbled the ball away on their first offensive snap, and then North County recovered at the Hawks' 29-yard line. Hillsboro, they held the Raiders to a field goal opportunity that was missed by Grant Mullins. So on the Hawks' second drive, starting from their own 8-yard line, sophomore quarterback Preston Brown, he used his legs to set up the Hawks for a scoring chance.
How you doing, Corey? Good to see you, man. Always. Yeah.
Doing good? I like the hat.
I don't know, it's an old one.
It's classic. So 7-0 lead for Hillsboro. North County, they get the ball back, and Grant Mullins got a second chance, hit a 25-yard field goal with 7 minutes to go in the half. A bad snap on a Hillsboro punt gave North County a fresh set of downs from the Hillsboro 8-yard line once again. But the Hawks defense, they forced the Raiders to kick another field goal. However, North County, they would get another stop and the ball back after forcing a punt with 60 seconds to go in the half. Raiders then drove to the Hillsboro 15 with a little bit of time to spare. Right, 15 seconds. You don't think that much can happen with that, but squib kick comes from North County. Hillsboro gets it at their own 47-yard line. Bill Saharsky, head coach of the Hawks, he decided to get aggressive. That led to a Nick Marchetti 37-yard field goal to tie the game at 10 going into the break. And we do have one of our guests joining us at the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable now. Central head coach Corey Weiss. You haven't gotten a chance to play any North County or the Hillsboroughs of the world, have you?
We did. I mean, we played them not this year, not anytime lately, but we had a cycle with North County, I guess, back in, I don't know.
How often do you, or are you aware of what else is going on with the other teams in the area? Do you get to watch any clips? Do you read any, about some of the other game recaps from Friday nights?
Yeah, I watch. We're all friends. Really good friend of one of my assistants, PJ, and or cousins, I think, and we're so we kind of stay in touch and we kind of bounce ideas off each other a little bit. And, the Harsky was actually probably not right away because Stan Helms was up there, but Saharsky had a run at Herky there for a little while, so I coached against him quite a bit in my younger years when I wasn't very good.
Yeah, I always get curious, how much other coaches are keeping up with other stuff with the teams in the area. Yeah, I forgot that PJ Jones is on the staff there.
Oh yeah, well, don't forget about that because he's one of the better coaches. He's one of the better coaches in the area. I know he's not a head coach, but he could very well be, and he's probably about as good as anybody in the area, head coach or no head coach.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit of that later on in the show because I know that you got a very talented staff, a lot of fellow Central alums. But we're tied at 10 in the J98 game of the week. Hillsboro, they get the second half kickoff. They give it to Austin Romaine on the first play.
So Griff, basically, they have two consecutive plays where they score points. Their last offensive play of the first half, their first offensive play of the second half. I mean, what a huge segment of that ball game within just seconds of each other, game time anyway.
Yeah, and the fact that Preston Brown, he only completed 3 passes that night, and one of them was just a perfect pass to Chase Saharsky with 15 seconds to go in the first half, sets up a field goal. There were 5 field goal attempts in this game. You don't see that in a high school game that much.
Coach, do you actually work? Because I know that coaches talk about, and it's all, coaches receive or defer, but like that last part of the first half, that first part of the third quarter, like, can you actually practice doing that well?
Yeah, I mean, we always defer, and the reason we defer is because we want to be able to, if we have a chance to score at the end of the half, and you're down, in the first half, get all that back without having to play defense if you do it right. There's definitely some strategy.
Was that always the mindset, or was there a certain game that you were a head coach and you realized maybe I should have deferred there, then you start doing it from then on?
No, I think, it was always, we always want to start on defense. Like, your kids are always hyped up. I think you always want to start on defense if you can, just because. I think offense, you got to settle in. You don't want to be too high when you're, throwing the ball or, whatever. So I always want to start on defense. We always defer. There's been a couple.
The Hillsboro defense, I mean, on that Friday night, the J98 game of the week, they were tough to go against because North County, they had opportunity after opportunity, but the Hawks, they stepped up. North County averaged just 1.7 yards per carry on 32 attempts. Job Smith only 35 yards on 18. Hillsboro's Preston Brown, he outrushed the Raiders on his own.
And Griffin, I just want to ask you, you're doing play-by-play for that game. We know how good this North County offense can be, especially with Job Smith running the football. From your perspective, I didn't get to watch the game, sadly, but what was Hillsboro doing that made life so difficult for North County?
Well, I'll tell you what Brian Jones said after the game is how quick they were off the edge. I mean, you talk about Austin Romaine. He's a Power 5 guy. He's going to Kansas State to play linebacker. It was pretty evident that he was able to do so. And some of the other guys that they were bringing off the edge in that game, it just kind of caught North County a little bit off guard. I mean, they have these 2 kids playing bandit positions, and Dalton Ross had blocked that field goal earlier in the first half. Canyon Stout was doing a little bit of everything. Alex Medina, he probably ended up having maybe 4 or 5 tackles for loss in the game. So the defense, they just did a really good job of sticking to the game plan, which is we're going to take it away from Job Smith and not let you do much else after that. And they absolutely did. So they end up winning 31-10. The Hillsboro Hawks do. Preston Brown, his older brother Peyton, added a rushing touchdown. Preston was the Applebee's of Farmington player of the game. 112 yards, and he completed 3 passes in key spots for 50 yards. Hillsboro head coach Bill Saharsky, he was impressed with his team's defense. probably better for the Hillsboro coach to let you know how his defense played. You know, I can answer it as much as I possibly can, but that helps the Hawks stay undefeated at 4-0. They got Festus this Friday. We'll talk about that game. We'll have it on AM 1400 KJEF. North County now 3-1. They play Battle this Friday. Yeah, I was impressed with Hillsboro, with the way all the weapons that they have on offense, defensively slowing down Job Smith. This is one of the teams I was thinking about that got me thinking about postseason play and down the road. That's for us to think about. Well, I'm sure the coaches and players, they take a game-by-game approach. That was the J98 game of the week.
I think of Hillsboro Griff as a kind of a power team, first of all, but it sounds like you were impressed with their team speed, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah. It was all around just impressive. And this is, I'd have to add up the amount of seniors and juniors that they start on the defensive end. But you bring back 3 experienced linebackers in Jackson Patterson, Austin Romaine, and Peyton Brown. You have an experienced secondary, Harrison Voiles, Griffin Ray, Blake Larson, all of those guys seniors. And then on the defensive line, just one junior starting. Well, Dalton Ross, not a defensive lineman, that bandit position. They've been through the grinder. They've had their ups, they've had their downs, they've learned about everything. And this is a year where I think that Saharsky, he told us during the training camp that they want to be competing for conference championships, district championships, and maybe even more. I think they have the even more part on their mind, especially after what I saw from Friday night. So we'll take us break here. Then we'll come back on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable and break down what happened on AM 800 KREI, an exciting game for the Farmington Knights. That's all next on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Welcome back into the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Griffin Weinberg, Garrett Davenport, Chad Speaker with you, head coach of the Central Rebels, Corey Weiss, joining us now as well. I'm already thinking about some food for later on, Chad.
I think I've got it narrowed down to 3 things, but
Yeah.
once I get the menu, it could expand. We're going to do a SEMO North feature here coming up with Sykeston and Farmington, but Corey and the Rebels, they're almost like SEMO North, like honorary members with 3 games against SEMO North teams, Bluff, Cape, and Farmington all this year. But we think maybe we could get a matchup with you and Jackson. What do you think?
Yeah,
I like that.
Well, I think Eckley would want to play us, I'm sure. But the thing about it, we played 5 SEMO teams. We played 3 SEMO North teams and 2 SEMO Central teams. So, it is. I don't know. Crothersville might be in the SEMO South, but I don't know how they're all. I don't know how it's all broke up, but I know we play a lot of teams down there, and it just happened to be that way this year. I liked Bluff. I thought that would be a real competitive game for us. Bigger school, obviously, getting the points. Cape Central, we knew that we'd get points in that game as well. Jackson, it's one of those things. We played their JV last year, and we were able to beat their JV. But that's one of those games I'd probably like to stay away from most years. They're pretty much a juggernaut.
Yeah, Farmington got their crack at Jackson a couple of weeks ago. Last Friday, the Farmington Knights, they made it 7 straight over Sykeston with a 48-15 victory at Hale Memorial Stadium. It took only seconds for the Knights to break in front. Kerner. Chad Stradamus.
Well, I got lucky.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Yeah.
That was talent on his end. That was a lucky guess by me. But no, I mean, he has had some nice returns this year, and he's kind of been one block away, from busting it.
Yeah.
And you can see his burst. So, it wasn't like it took a super smart guy to see that it could happen.
I was going to ask, it sounded like you really hit the burners, on his way towards the end zone there.
He's got that football speed. Coach Creepy doesn't ever really have many guys that he will tell you run a 4.4 or a 4.5. But he does have some guys that you put the pads on and they don't seem to lose speed. Felker from last year, he wasn't clock fast, but you put him in a football game and he runs people down and he runs away from them. So,
some people just got it. Well, after that special teams gem, the Farmington running game took over. Cason McLean, he scored the next 2 touchdowns for the Knights.
I thought McLean looked. I thought he looked faster than they did at the beginning of the season. I don't. Maybe he's not. Maybe Sykeston was slow, but he sure looked fast.
He's only a sophomore, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Braden Berry having, that something to him. Cason McLean's a guy that's got that dog in him as well, because you saw a couple weeks ago, we talked about Jackson really didn't do anything against the Indians. He comes back and he has a really big game, especially in that first quarter. Cason McLean's a really good ball player.
Yeah, through 4 games, he's averaging 144 on the ground, and that's, like you said, basically not really doing much against Jackson at all. So.
Yeah, not too shabby at all for a sophomore. Still finding his way and getting comfortable, I guess, in the game. But it looks like it. 132 yards in the first quarter, finished with 212 on 21 carries. However, the Knights, they turned the ball over twice. Sykeston captured the momentum with the next 2 scores. The first was a pretty shot in the man coverage.
Sykeston had some tall, rangy receivers that had some athleticism to them, and Farmington was covering them one-on-one. I mean, their corners were on islands, and that was one of those where the quarterback, Heckemeyer said, hey, I like what I see. I'm going to throw it up and give my receiver a chance. And I thought we would see more of that maybe after that, but they didn't really do a whole lot more. Well, plus they were down to their third-string quarterback. Farmington played so physical with them and sent two quarterbacks out of the ball game. Plus, Farmington had a lot of pressure in the backfield, 14 tackles for loss for the Knights in the ball game. So it's not like Heckemeyer, had a long time to throw either. So
yeah, no, an aggressive team. They play hard. Definitely sounds like it. Well, Heckemeyer, he ended up running one in later for Sykeston for the other score, and he also converted a 2-point conversion to make it a 6-point game before Braden Berry struck again.
You heard my color guy Terry Noble there, and it was one of those plays that you saw Barry split out there, and Farmington doesn't throw much, like 3 or 4 times a game maybe, but we looked at one another as we saw kind of the alignment, and we saw the cornerback given 12 yards of cushion, and if you watch Farmington this year and you have a little bit of football awareness, you could kind of see that was coming, and they run it really nice. What they do is they bring him kind of on a hook and come back just a couple of steps out, and then they run their lineman out to run a lead block off of the thing, and it's a nice play for them. You got to scout it out.
And something that really just impressed me here in this game was the fact that this Farmington team, really, really young in that backfield, Sykeston starts to take momentum that way. And for Farmington to respond and get that punch in the mouth and come back and be able to score and take that lead again is something that I thought was really, really impressive. And, Coach, I just want to ask you, once, I'm sure you haven't found yourself down in many games, but, when you find yourself, the other team starting to build some momentum, how do you rally your guys and kind of switch the tide?
I don't know. I just think you just have to stick with what you do. You can't try to get away from what you do. I think that's happened a few times over the years. You kind of hit the panic mode, but I think that's the worst thing you can do. I think you just got to stay true to what you do, and hopefully, things start working out better for you. I kind of chuckled because Chad said Farmington only throws about 3 times a game. I think Bishop had like 15 catches against us last year.
But you guys were up big, and and you were also playing big cushion, and they were running some short routes.
And I'm laughing too because the play that they scored on there, I guess I didn't see it yet. I haven't watched this game yet, but I guess that was the same play that they scored on Potosi, I guess, where the tackle got out there and on that short little screen or whatever, wide receiver screen.
They've run it 4 times, Corey, and they have 3 touchdowns on that play.
I don't think Coach Cooper's going to like you telling me all this stuff.
Well, they ran it. They ran it. They ran it against North County for a score too. So yeah. Well, isn't it up to them to come up with some different plays too, though?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Some free scouting. Free scouting.
Oh yeah,
exactly. Well, he scored with another touchdown catch in the second half. That gave him 3 for the night.
I think that's the best ball that Brett Dry has thrown this year. It was just a slant route, but you don't see Farmington actually really run those very much. They'll run, screens or the hooks or the outs, or they'll just try to maybe beat somebody down the field and time it out. But this one was a really nice slant route between coverage and hit him in a window. And you don't see that out of their passing game a lot. So that's why I thought that was probably Brett Dry's probably best pass of the year. And I'll tell you what, if you put Braden Berry in a different offense, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. He's really emerging right now. I like him as a talent.
How many times did they throw the ball on Friday, Farmington, off the top of your head?
Well, I'm not going to go off the top of my head.
That's fair.
It was 4. They were 3 for 4 for 2 touchdowns. So,
Efficient.
they'll say that we're not going to throw it much, but when we do throw it, we're looking for chunks.
It's a lot like Kaysen. He had a game like that a couple weeks ago. It's 6 for 7 for a few touchdowns.
Yeah. Basically, Farmington lulls you to sleep is what they do. They keep running the midline. They keep running the veer. They'll run some of that outside zone stuff. And a lot of it looks the same, and then they'll all of a sudden throw off of it, and you got your safeties and stuff coming downhill to stop all that stuff, and they can catch you. But
you kind of got to load the box. I mean, unless you're just superior, unless you've got linebackers and guys that can keep. I mean, you have to load the box at some point against them, don't you?
You definitely have to scheme their best plays, and if you take away their best, and you want to take their best plays away with as few guys as you can, or as few guys as you can, and that's the key, because then you can keep guys there just in case. But it's a tough offense. I thought Coach Krupe did an outstanding job years ago when they switched over to this offense, being in the SEMO North. I think if you're playing in, up here in this area, you can stay running the spread and stuff. But down there, going against teams like Sykeston, and Sykeston was good back then. Cape Central had some good teams back then. Jackson was obviously good back then. Just to be competitive in that conference, you had to have some kind of ball control offense. And and he did that, and he ended up in those years that all those teams were really good. He ended up keeping games close, and they've gotten just better over the years running that offense, like Farmington as a staff.
Well, Coach Krupe got here. Sykeston was only a few years removed from back-to-back semifinals, and Cape was only a few years removed, I believe, from a semifinal and a championship appearance. And then Eckley gets to Jackson, and they become the monster again.
Right, so, that's what I mean. Like that was a tough conference, and I know when Vaughn was here, they had a lot of success, and they thought whatever, but. The football up here wasn't giving them enough competition, so they wanted to go to that conference, and that was a big step for Farmington. But at the same time, man, those teams down there, now it's not like that now, But when you're talking Bluff, Cape Central, Sykeston, and Jackson at that time, man, they were. That was pretty ballsy of them, if I can say that on the air.
Yeah, and Class 5 too. Not only good but big. Yeah,
right, that's what I mean. So that was, that was pretty impressive, and they've been able to hold their own. I mean, obviously Jackson's, they're just kind of heads and tails above everybody, and they've been. Eckley's one of the best coaches in the state, but I tell you what, Farmington's held their own in that conference. I mean, they're always typically the second best team in there. So that's a lot to be said for that, I think.
Braden Berry holding his own, too. Add him to the all-team name for the listening area. No, we got, the SEMO, at least Tony Terry. He's up there. The kid from Jackson. I love that. Braden Berry. Throw him up there. So Jackson McDowell, his teammate, he caps the night with a 70-yard touchdown run. The Knights held the Bulldogs to just 22 second-half yards and no points. Braden Berry, he joined us on the Patsy's Furniture End Zone show as our Applebee's player of the game. Spent his time complimenting his teammates.
I'm more often than not so impressed with our student athletes that we talk to, because I don't know if I was interviewed when I was in high school. I think they have much more of an awareness. You see video all over the internet.
Everyone's on Twitter
and stuff like that. I think they're more savvy than I would have been growing up with talking to media people.
Yeah, he sounded really good.
I mean, gives credit to others, and but yet kind of takes you through the plays.
Yeah, it's like an SID or someone told him, like, always, compliment the opponent first, then you get to talk about your team. He compliments his teammates, and that's good stuff. So Farmington, they improved to 2-2 on the season. They got TDW Academy on Friday. We'll learn a little bit about them later on in the show. And then Sykeston, they fall to 1-3. They host Poplar Bluff. Step aside for a quick break. When we return, we'll break down the Jefferson County game of the night on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Try our best to learn. Welcome back into the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable, where we are about to break down the Jefferson County game of the night. St. Pius, they improved to 3-1 with a 34-12 victory over Jefferson on AM 1400 KJF last Friday. Pius, they struck first off the arm of James Smith. I was about to say Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Smith used his legs from 5 yards out to give Pius a 14-0 advantage, but Jefferson scored the next 2 touchdowns to make it a 2-point game. Smith threw 2 more touchdown passes as the Lancers pulled away for the win. Love that name. Matt Mariani, his name gets added to the all-team name as well.
Theodoro, he's got some good ones going there.
There are a lot of good ones. We'll have a list for you maybe to go along with the dream team at the end of the year. Coach Dan Oliver for St. Pius, he says he's got a nice dual-threat signal caller. Tony Terry. Well, Smith, he completed 10 of 16 passes for 193 and 3 scores, and he led a 304-yard rushing attack with 20 carries and 84 yards. Garrett, this was not at all like the game last year that you remember very well.
Not at all. I mean, there was a lot of running the football for St. Pius last year. Of course, he got that Hail Mary, the crazy Hail Mary to Debria Moss. I didn't even know who he was at the time. But, when it comes to this year, James Smith just brings a whole new dynamic to the St. Pius offense. You lose a guy like Nate Rubel, you lose Logan Jacobson, big guys that you can just give the ball up the gut and they're going to get you 4 or 5 yards a carry. They needed somebody to throw it to their skill guys like Austin McGuckin and, Matt Mariani, some of these amazing names for St. Pius. Yep. They needed a guy like that, and James Smith just brings it every single night. In the past 3 games, their offense has really been rolling. I mean, 47 against Bishop DuBourg, 35 against Grandview, and now against Jefferson put up 27 points. I mean, this is a St. Pius offense. They're known for rushing the football, but really have changed the way they do things because of the way James Smith runs the table.
It doesn't sound like they scored a lot against Jefferson, but Jefferson came in with a really stout defense.
Yeah, Jefferson has a really, really good defense. I mean, they were keeping guys to single-digit points. But this is just a St. Pius offense looks really good. Another thing for Jefferson, their offense really struggled throughout their first couple of games. Colt Williams looks like to be their QB1. Nate Breeze, defensively, offensively, that's a good team. They struggled out of the gate, but they can start rolling here at the tail end of the season. We talked about teams, not with the best record, but have some really important games coming up. That's really the Jefferson Blue Jays.
Yeah, some really good games coming up. It doesn't get any easier for St. Pius. They go against the strong defense of Herculaneum this week with a 3-1 record. And Jefferson, they're going to take on Bayless, those teams with dual 1-3 records in that game. We'll break down some of the other games that happened from the Week 4 football scoreboard after a very quick break. You're listening to the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98.
No. I mean, we have to talk about it.
Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98 live from the Applebee's in Farmington. I'm smelling some chicken, smelling a little bit of pasta. Might have to mix in a salad this evening, though. I did some heavy eating over the weekend.
I thought you were smelling what The Rock was cooking.
I'm absolutely smelling what The Rock is cooking. I'm tasting what he's cooking up, too. Some of that good terramana that The Rock's staring at me tonight. Always love walking in here. Thanks to Amy Cousins for giving us a spot to set up at. Let's break down the other games that happened in the listening area. We just went through the Regional Radio Football Midwest Sports Center broadcast scoreboard, a bunch of words in there. So let's see what happened in St. Vincent and Herculaneum as the Indians, they improved to 4-0 with a 19-16 win over the Black Hats in an I-55 matchup. Tim Schumer and in the Indians, they used a late defensive stand to pull away. Yeah, Herky was throwing the ball around in this one 42 times. Jackson Deering threw it. Lucas Barr caught 11 for 197, but St. Vincent, they pull away. 4-0 is the record. Herky loses their first game to go to 3-1. Valley Catholic, MAFC White game. They beat Potosi 68-13. For Valley Catholic, play starts and ends at the line of scrimmage. Judd Nagger talks about how his team prepares for the battle in the trenches. Another big game for Bryce Giesler. 10 carries, 156 on the ground, 3 touchdowns. Rylan Fallard throws in and a kickoff return for touchdown. Carson Tucker, a pick 6. Valley goes to 4-0. Potosi 1-3. Coach, we'll talk about this game. We're going to be broadcasting it a couple Fridays from now. I know you got a tough St. Genevieve team coming up this Friday as well, but Central's never played Valley Catholic in their histories. I don't know if you've looked at the histories, though.
Well, we used to be Valley and Central used to be in the same conference forever, and when it was the old MAAA, I think that broke up in 2090, maybe 1999 or 2000 or whatever. But we were always in the same conference with North County Valley, saying Valley because going back to those days.
Well, you played there,
right,
to let people know.
We all played. Back in the day, the old conference was Farmington, North County, Potosi, St. John, Central, us, our Valley, and St. Vincent.
Was Fredericktown in it?
And Fredericktown.
Yep.
It was those 8 teams, and that was the old conference. And then it got to be, in the late '90s, I think, they wanted to separate it in large and small, and then we did that, and then the Jefferson County teams got it on board because there used to be a Jefferson County conference that was all the big and small schools together, and then they separated, and so then we all just kind of merged, and the Jefferson County and MAAA kind of merged as one and became the what we have now is the MAFC. So, and then the I-55 conference split off of that. So that's kind of how that happened. That was in the 2000s, and then
it's like college football. It's like today's college football.
A little bit. And then we actually played Valley, I guess Central. That is, played Valley. My first coaching game ever at Central was against Valley. And it was against Judd. Judd and I were coached our first varsity games against each other, actually. So I think we played them for a four-year cycle back then. And then Judd and I were such good friends, we decided that we would quit playing that game so that we could kind of talk a little bit more. And then, back then we were both terrible. Valley and Central were terrible. So as we started getting better, we started talking about maybe playing each other. But it was one of those things we kind of stayed away from it just because we were like assistant coaches for each other because he'd send us film, I'd send him film. We'd get ideas from each other. So we kind of stayed away from it. But, I think now it's probably the time. I think both programs are kind of to a point now where in this area we probably need to be playing each other.
Yeah, you sort of answered my next question, about what it took to kind of get this game together. Obviously, you guys are going to be in the MAFC White Division. Not going to be, you are currently. When did that process kind of change for you and Judd and maybe some of the other coaches where you are getting ideas from each other, sharing, concepts, sharing video? And do you still do that a little bit with some of the other coaches in the area?
Yeah, I think it's like I mentioned earlier. I think coaches a lot of times we kind of have a fraternity. We're kind of all wired the same way. So when you have a relationship with these guys, if you don't play them, you bounce ideas off of them. You see them in different places, and you talk about scheme, you talk about all that stuff. So, I remember when Krupe first got here to Farmington. We weren't playing Farmington at the time, and I reached out to him. I went over to the office over there for 2 hours, talked football with him. We didn't play each other at the time. He talked about his defense strategy, and all that stuff. And then, fast forward a few years, we start playing each other, and you kind of have an idea what they think. You know what I mean? So, I think for the most part, like Dylan Wyrick, when he got that job at Potosi, he came over to our place, and we kind of told him how we do everything. And I think as coaches, if you're confident in what you do, you don't care who you tell. It's a matter of who can prepare their kids the best, So I think it's just a neat thing, I think, to kind of help each other out. Whether you play them or whether you don't play them. I know some people are like, well, you're playing them. I'm like, yeah, but I mean, still, they got to still stop you. And they still got to, their kids still got to play better than our kids do. So, it's fun. I think it's a game, but it's still all about relationships, even with the other guys from the other team and the guys on your own team. It's all about relationships anyway.
As a broadcaster, I've always said, if I steal from one person, it's plagiarism, but I steal from everybody. So that's called research. That's right. And you coaches are the same way.
For sure. I mean, you look it up. I mean, you look stuff up on YouTube. You go to coaching clinics. It ain't no secret. Like when Eckley and Judd or any other coaches that I consider to be like just excellent coaches, when they're at a clinic speaking, you want to go listen to them. So, I mean, you try to steal ideas from them. And, as much as X's and O's anymore, I think, most of the clinics I've gone to lately, I've really been studying the relationship aspect of coaching, because I felt like that's kind of when our program took a turn, was when we started focusing more on the kid and less on the scheme, because then you get the kids to play really hard for you. And I think that's what all the good programs have done. And so I think that's kind of where I started stealing. I mean, obviously, you sit on your couch on a Saturday or a Sunday with a notepad, because when you see a good play on college, on TV, you can rewind it and you steal stuff like that. But, I think all of it comes down to relationships and getting to know your kids and that kind of thing.
Well, you can see that in your team this year. I mean, you have kids, great athletes that weren't playing football, but they see how fun it is to play football at Central. And I mean, you have more kids out this year now.
Yeah, and we're losing numbers, and that's kind of disappointing. But we're gaining guys. But we're losing numbers. I don't know if we're necessarily losing numbers of kids that would be playing football. It's just there's just not as much interest, I think it's across the board. I talk to coaches all over the place, and they say the same thing. It's a lot of hard work. Football's not easy. Playing football is not easy, and you're putting in a lot of time for, sometimes 10 games, 11 games, 12 games, and it is what it is. I think the kids that play it think it's some of the best memories they'll ever have. But a lot of the kids that never try it, they don't know, and all they see is the work that it takes to do it, and they don't want to attempt it. But I think the ones that put in the time and the effort, I think they all get rewarded because of the memories that they're always going to have.
On the relationship end of things, you'd have to fill me in on when you kind of put your staff together for this year, but was it important to have guys that are alums of Central High School, guys that played football for you as well?
I don't think so. I think you could get anybody and get them on board with the relationships, but I think the ones that have come through the program know what it's about. So, it was just a given. We have a lot of guys, 8 on our staff that played for us. But we also have a lot of guys around in the area that coach also. So, like this year, we stole Bridges from Farmington, which I always thought of it as them stealing him first, but we got Bridges back this year, which was, something I wanted to do. And then Jace Bland, our quarterback after him, he graduated college and got a job. So we were able to hire him. So those were the 2 that we gained this year, but we've got some others. I had a guy on our sideline last year. Well, since he's been in school, and he got a job this year at Kenneth. Kenneth's in our district. They're 4-0, and I'm sending him stuff all the time. And we play a lot of the same teams, so I'm sending him a lot of our games. And I don't care. Like, he's like, you don't have to do that. I was like, no, man. I don't care. You take it, use it, try to make it better. He was all worried about, giving their coach stuff, and I was like, dude, you need to be loyal to them now. Like, you don't need to be loyal to me anymore. Like, but he still is like worried about it. I'm like, no, man. I'm like, tell them everything that we do. If you can help them out, help them out. That's what your job is now. So, I just think it's cool that, obviously he at some point wants to come back. Got a lot of guys out there that want to come back. Like, it's like their home. They know it's their home, and they're just kind of out at college right now, and they're just waiting to come back. So,
but what a compliment to you and your program too.
Yeah, it's really cool. I always say it's almost as much fun watching our guys coach as it is watching our kids play, because I feel like they're all kind of our kids. You know what I mean? So, and they're not kids anymore. They're starting to have families now too, and that's kind of cool. You're almost like the grandpa. All the kids that you coached are having kids, so they're all out there running on the field and stuff.
So how close are you to coaching a kid of somebody you coached?
I've already coached.
Have you really?
Yeah, I've already coached some kids that I've coached. Yeah. Kind of weird. It's really weird, actually. That's why I don't know how much longer I can do it, because that kind of stuff gets really weird. It was interesting coming to Central from being down in the St. John area, because when I first got here, I didn't know anybody, and I thought that was a good thing, because I didn't have loyalties to anybody. I didn't have to worry about playing favorites or anything like that. Well, now my kids. I've known those parents. You grow up when your kids grow up, you get a whole new set of friends. Because your parents, the parents of the kids that your kids play with, and so that group of parents had to come through. And I've got some more this year because Ty's a senior, and you've actually got parents of kids on your team that are friends of yours, and that adds a whole nother dynamic. And I know Judd and Pope and those guys battle that from being from St. John, because they're coaching kids of people that they played with and some of their best friends. And, it's hard to put that stuff aside and play the best guys and do all that stuff sometimes. And, sometimes it's hard. You lose friendships over some stuff that you do. And, but it is what it is. It's just part of your job. So you got to do the best you can with it. And I think if you develop the relationship, it kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, well, Pope and those Dragons, they had a really nice Friday night. They beat Fredericktown 44-6. The 6 points are the least amount of points that St. John has given up this season. Jay Pope, he says that the defense has been improving. Sort of echoes kind of what you were saying, Coach. I mean, this St. John team, they play gritty. They play, pretty ferocious. They got a new running back on their team, too, that's playing well. What have you seen from the tape of Aiden Butcher?
He runs hard. I know Pope said in his interview with you guys that he's a prototypical St. John back, and he is. I mean, he runs really hard. He's fast. On film, he looks really fast. So, he's definitely a guy that sticks out when you put the film in. I think Aiden Boyer obviously is probably where your eyes go first. He can beat you both ways, throwing and running, but they're better up front. I heard Coach Pope also in the interview talk about his line play being some of the best that they've had for a while, and I would agree with that. I see him up front, and going into this game, I told our kids, I said, this will be the toughest game that you've had up front, for sure. I think they're probably better than Bluff and Cape Central. Not taking anything away from them, but across the board, the five guys up front are better than what we've seen. So it'll be a challenge for us, and I think our kids are looking forward to it. But the Butcher kid definitely stands out on film.
Yeah, I think you said a few weeks ago in one of the interviews with us that how athletic your team is and how talented they are. You weren't sure, physically where they were at that point in the season. How's their physicality grown over the last 4 games?
Well, I think we made a big improvement in that area. I think we moved Christian Stewart, who you'll get to talk to here in a little bit, but we moved him inside the inside linebacker position. I think when we get Jackson Jones back, which I don't know when that'll be, but it'll be soon. He'll play the other inside spot. And that'll allow us to move Kendall Horton, probably, who's been playing out of position, out of necessity. It'll allow us to move him to the outside corner, somewhere else where he'll be a better fit defensively as well. So that'll all those moves will make us better physically. We got Evan Weiss back from earlier in the year, and he's first game back week 3. He just played offense. Last week against Cape Central, he played on both sides of the ball, and it obviously made a difference because that allowed us to move Tristan back to the middle, and I don't think it's any secret why we had our best game defensively, because with both those two in there, it definitely made a difference.
So do you and Coach Pope, do you guys talk throughout the week?
Oh, yeah, we talk. We talk about our officiating crew that we're going to have Friday.
Yeah.
we talk.
You know him well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We talk about a lot of stuff, he's an old Valley guy too. So there's a lot of stuff we talk about. Not so much we play he plays the sandbag game. I'll play the sandbag game. Yeah. Judd doesn't have to play the sandbag game. He never does. But it's one of those things that it's going to be fun just because it's going to be a competitive football game. We like, there's mutual respect on both sides. So this Bermuda Triangle that's coming up is going to be very interesting, I think.
A certain amount of respect for the officiating crew as well, it sounds
for
like.
Sure.
Too.
I mean, seriously, he's just been doing it for 80 years or whatever. So he's got a lot of experience. Let's just say that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're looking forward to it. Yeah, we'll have it on J98 on the call. How about the Suburban Orange Conference? Seckman, they take down Melville to continue just this incredible point streak that they're on. 64 points per game over their last 3, all victories. Seckman coach Nick Baer, he says the competition within the squad brings out the best on game day. Cole Rubel just continuing his tear, 12 carries, 158 yards, and 5 touchdowns as Seckman improves to 3-1. Crystal City, 4-0. Coach Dan Fox, he says that Crystal City crosses their T's and dots their I's regardless of who they're playing. Up next for the 4-0 Hornets are the 3-1 Class 4 Gateway Legacy Jaguars. Moving on to the I-55, Perryville takes down Bayless 40-0. Brent Roth says his guys showed some bounce. Senior Alex Sanders, 13 carries, 173 yards, and 3 touchdowns to help the Pirates get to their first win, 1-3. Festus beats DeSoto, 56-7. Armad Branch caught 5 balls for 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hayden Bates throws in 136 all-purpose yards and 3 scores as the Tigers improve to 2-2. DeSoto falls to 1-3. Grandview, they lose to St. Dominic, 42-6. Nashmore will shout him out, 18 runs, 74 yards, but Grandview drops to 2-2. Northwest, they fall to Lafayette, 49-0. Tough goings for Northwest as they drop to 0-4. Senior Robbie Brandt, though, he recorded 6.5 tackles. Christopher Hansen, 17 of 28 passing for 130 yards. Down in the Suburban Red, Fox, they lose to Rittner, 34-20. The Warriors, they ran it well. 3 touchdowns, 310 yards, 8 yards per carry. Dominic Murray had over 100. They threw it all over Fox. 409 yards passing, 2 touchdowns for quarterback Jaden Barnett as Fox goes to 1-3. And then our final game was on last Saturday. Windsor, they beat Bishop DuBourg 41-6 as Jordan Foster and Anthony Fletcher combined for 27 carries, 170 yards. Fletcher 50% completion percentage for 88 yards and a score as Windsor is 2-2. I lied. One more game we need to talk about. The Central Rebels, they beat Cape Central 41-20. Coach said that your team started fast. Really well for you this year. How have you seen him develop over the last 4 games and I guess from the offseason?
He's been unbelievable. I do think there's a learning curve there at the beginning. What I've found out is, and I already knew this going in because I've been able to coach him in baseball and football, is, you tell the kid something that better be right because he's not going to forget it. He's a high IQ guy. He's over a 30 on the ACT as a sophomore. So he's got a really good head on his shoulders, and I can't say enough of how he's progressed through the first 4 weeks. I think this week he was 15 of 17, but he really had 2 drops. He should have been 17 for 17. He's hitting guys when he needs to hit them. He's hitting them where he needs to hit them, and he extends plays with his legs. Reminds me a lot of Jake Bridges when Jake was with us. It's a little bit different than Jason and Jed, even though they were really good at that too. It's just different. Jake and Kaysen they're just so shifty in how they do it. They could be going one way and then in no time they're going the opposite direction, and his eyes are still downfield. And I was playing golf with his dad Saturday, and he was giving him. His dad's a bum, by the way. I know you're looking at me because he texted me and told me I look like an idiot. But anyway, he said that he missed an open guy downfield, and I was like, hey, don't be giving him any trouble because, he still completed the pass, but he was saying there was somebody open further down the field. But I tell you what, he does a really good job scrambling. He does a good job on our designed runs. He does a good job on our sprint outs. He can throw left, throw right. He just really can do it all. So he's been really good, and I'm excited to see how much better he gets over the course of the next year and a half.
Yeah, and I think we know how good of a baseball player he is. He was our Dream Team Baseball Player of the Year and just a pitcher in general. You have to have, a sort of a certain intellect to be a top-level pitcher in baseball, to know when to throw what certain pitch, where to put it, how to really work around a batter. Does that sort of translate at all? Do you see from a pitcher to a quarterback position? Because I know that you're on the baseball staff too. You watch him throw all the time.
Yeah, I think, I think that him and Jake and Jace and all of our good quarterbacks, even Dylan Corcoran was a catcher. They all pitched. They all played baseball. I think there's a pitcher and a catcher. They have to understand how to attack. I think a lot of similarities when you're a quarterback. And the good thing about like a kid like Kaysen is he wants to know. Like he wants to know why we're attacking certain things that we're attacking. It's not just doing it because the coach says. He wants to understand why. And then the good thing is when he's out there on the field, it's like I'm out there on the field. Like he knows where, like when the fronts are kicked certain ways, or when they're in a certain defensive front, or when how many linebackers there are, where the linebackers are at, what we're wanting to do. And that I mean, when you start doing that, it's and you have weapons like he's got, it can become pretty scary to defend. But again, and I hear these coaches talk about it all the time, it starts up front. Like if you don't have the guys up front, it really doesn't matter about all that stuff. And like I said, getting Evan Weiss back, that helped a ton, and I think that helped even in Kaysen's confidence, because the first two games I think there were some protection issues, and Evan's kind of our brains up front, you know what I mean? So like when he got back, it was like that stuff all got fixed. So I think that just gave Kaysen even more confidence. Probably should have been 7 for 7, and then this week he was 15 and 17. It should have been 17 for 17. So he could have very well been, played 2 games and not thrown an incomplete pass. So, and we throw it. It's not like we don't throw it. We throw it from game.
Yeah, and some of those guys up front, whether it's Evan, Tristan on the offensive line, or keep them out the linebacker defensively. There's about a few special teams and defensive touchdowns too, right?
Oh yeah, we scored a ton on defense and got a lot of turnovers. We're super athletic in the back end of our secondary. We've got 4 kids that start at corner and safety that have already been all state in some sport, and some of them in multiple sports. So, I don't think very many teams can say that. And the good thing is, only one of those 4 is a senior. So, we'll get three of those guys back. And then my son Ty plays the nickel position, and he got to start there last year. So there's 5 guys there that really understand what we're doing, and they're pretty athletic. So that helps. And then we got those guys and moving Tristan back. Kendall Horton's really athletic in the middle. But like I said, when we get Jackson back, we'll be able to play games with Kendall. Like as athletic as he is, we'll be able to move him around, which ought to help. And then those guys up front been doing a pretty good job too as well. So Sammy Callaway's been outstanding for us. Logan Murray's been outstanding for us. Getting Evan Weiss back, like I said, has been a big plus too.
I didn't do the math, but you'll probably know. Has your defense and special teams this year outscored the opposition?
Well, they probably have varsity wise. If you got to watch us last year, a lot of these guys that are playing this year, they were our JV last year. So when we put our JV in last year, we really didn't miss a beat, and it was hard not to run scores up because you put your JV when your varsity gets done. And your varsity scores a lot of points in the first half, and then you put your JV in. And last year, these guys just continued what our varsity did, and you can't tell them not to try. So it was one of those things where I know teams were thinking we were running the score up, but I mean, we couldn't. It's like I said, we couldn't. I talked to Eckley and Judd about it because it was a different situation for us. You don't want to just hand the ball off when everybody's expecting you to run the ball and have your JV kids not experience success. So you want to. Get in the games last year. I wanted him to treat it just like Jeff was treating it with our varsity guys, and so now we wouldn't throw the deep balls, but we would throw short passes and stuff in those situations. And this year we can't do that. We just don't have the personnel to do it. So when we do get those big leads, like we did Friday night against Cape in the first half or in the third quarter, when we put our young guys in there, we can't maintain what we were able to do with our varsity. So. There's a real big drop off there. So we've been giving up a lot of points. We've been giving up a lot of points for us, but a lot of those have been coming with our younger guys on the field, and that's good experience for them. I mean, they have to experience the playing on the Friday night. We wish we could be more successful when those guys are in the game, but right now there's a lot of those kids are learning on the go, and they're just there's a lot of mismatches out there right now when they're out there, and but again, I think it's all going to benefit them in the long run.
Yeah, going to be a really fun game on Friday. I think got some players that we're going to bring on here. We'll talk to them too and get their thoughts on the game and on the season. I think you got to order some food too. Yeah. Anything you're pointing out right now?
Nah, just give me a burger.
Keep it simple. Well, I guess we'll step aside for a little break, bring some of these Central Rebel players on here and have a fun conversation. You're listening to the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98 from the Applebee's in Farmington. Got some Central Rebel players joining us right now. If you're listening online at mymoinfo.com or on your radio, we can describe where they're sitting. And if you're watching on Twitter, you can probably see we have Tristan Stewart joining us in a red shirt and a really cool hat, by the way. Husky Outdoors, I like that. Ty Schweiss sitting in the blue shirt over here. Evan Weiss on his right, joining him at the end. Coach Corey Schweiss still joining us on the roundtable. Fellas, just got done eating. Tristan, what'd you get to dinner?
The quesadilla burger.
Really? It's one of Chad's favorites.
Solid.
Yeah. Is it good?
Nice work.
Yeah.
Yeah? You guys all like your food? Ty, what'd you get?
I got the all-you-can-eat boneless wings and fries.
There we go.
So he's probably headed back over there after this.
Yeah, got to get some more. Evan?
Same thing, but buffalo wings.
There we go. We love to hear that. Fellas, appreciate you joining us on the show here. A fantastic season you've been having so far with a record of 4-0. We were talking about some of the movements from the team from a personnel standpoint. I guess, Tristan, you moved from line to linebacker, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Have you enjoyed playing linebacker?
Yeah, it's different than the D-line. I mean, I played the D-line my whole life, so it's something new, yeah.
Yeah? Was that something that you asked Coach about, or did he say, we need you a linebacker now?
It was something that he told me I was going to go do in week 3.
Coach, what did you see out of Tristan that, gave you some belief that he would be able to man that position?
Well, I think Coach Jones was kind of mad at himself. He wanted to do this in the preseason, and it was one of those things that we thought with Jackson and Kendall or Jackson and whoever we could get by and leave Tristan on the defensive line, and then I think Mason got hurt, Jackson got hurt, and it was like we were all of a sudden really light at linebacker, and so when Evan got back from his injury, he missed the first 2 games. It gave us a little bit more depth on the defensive line, and then Coach Jones went to his idea before the season started of moving Tristan inside. He thought it would be a good fit. Tristan's for a big kid. He's really athletic, and he's physical, which is things you want at the middle linebacker position. And we don't have a lot of guys that are big and physical and quick, and so he kind of fit the bill. I'll tell you, he was out there Cape Central and out there in big old 59. I thought, man, he looks the part for sure. And he played the part Friday night against Cape Central as well. So I don't think there was I think we looked very good defensively because we made that move.
Yeah, and definitely looked the part how Swifty moved. We've seen it on the basketball court. It works out pretty well there. Evan, after missing the first couple of games, I guess, what do you do in those first 2 weeks? How much does it hurt to not be out there with your guys? And the 3-prong question, how happy were you to finally get back on the field?
Oh, you don't know. It was painful not being able to play, and my main thing was just trying to help out the guy playing my position and making sure he was doing the right thing.
Yeah, a lot of younger guys that you're kind of helping out in practice or, sort of teaching them along in some ways?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much so.
Yeah.
Evan, your coach said in our last segment that once you got back on the offensive line, everything kind of locked in and clicked in.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's more because you're so physical or because you have experience and knowledge?
Well, more of the experience thing. I've been playing with them for the past all summer and some of them for the past years. So whenever we all got back together, it just ran more fluently.
Yeah. Ty, were you playing wide receiver on offense?
I haven't yet, but that's where I'm going to – I'm going to start there this week, so
okay.
I haven't been in there much.
Defensively, where are you playing?
Outside linebacker.
Outside linebacker.
Nickel position. So.
Okay. Yeah, so you're moving around a little bit on that defensive side of the field.
Yep.
What's this is a terrible question. What's the worst part about playing for your dad?
Oh, gosh.
What's the most difficult part, I guess, if there's any part of that?
I don't know. I feel like the discipline. I mean, I get disciplined harder than anybody else, I feel like.
Hey, I played for my dad. You got to live with that.
But, I mean, I've learned how to play through it and play with it. So
Yeah, of course. And, it's going to be a really fun game that you guys have coming up on this Friday, too. I know St. John's always played you guys pretty tough over the past few years, and we're looking forward to broadcasting that one on J98. Tristan, do you know if any of the guys, do you guys have friendships with any of those kids over at St. John at all?
No, not really, but we grew up playing with against those kids our whole life in basketball and Maffle football, so some of them, but don't really talk to any of them, no.
I know that your coach, he mentioned that maybe in middle school, you guys would always play, whether it's baseball, basketball, football and stuff, and you guys got into some pretty good matchups there. Do you remember, how any of those middle school games went, whether it be, in any of the sports that you guys are playing and how they went?
I know our 7th grade year, St. John whipped up on us pretty well
Yeah.
when we were in there. They got us our 7th grade year, but other than that, not really. I don't remember much of that.
Do you guys just kind of forget about that? Does that stick in the back of your mind at all?
Now you kind of forget about it and move on when you get into high school and
Yeah.
just go out there and play.
Yeah. So, as far as, the team has been playing so far this year, last year, just a really high-powered offense. You guys are scoring out of the yin-yang, and Deshaun's doing his thing. It doesn't feel like you guys have really missed too much of a beat this year, after losing some of those key guys, whether it be Jet and Deshaun and so on and so forth. Ty, have you felt like, sort of last year that success has really carried on over into this year?
It has, and we get playmakers back like Kendall Horton, Hakeem Liddell, those kids like that. Cannon Harlow's another freak athlete out there right now for us. Mason Williams just went down with an injury. Those kids, they all are good in the open field, and they all do a lot like those kids, like Deshaun and Jet.
Yeah, and injuries are a part of the game. I remember in that I think it was the state quarterfinal game last year. I think Deshaun, he came up hobbling a little bit, but he stayed in the game. He played hard. You play through it. Evan, being one of those guys up front, where you got to be tough throughout the game, and you got to show that. How important is it to know that you guys are kind of giving, more than 100% effort each time out there?
You just gotta stay pumped up. Like one of my main things out there is to make sure that everybody on my line's pumped up and ready to go hit somebody, and it's just mainly that and keeping it going throughout the game.
Griff was talking about kind of carrying that success over from one year to the next, and that kind of is the thing when you have successful programs. Is there pressure to carry on when you have success like that, or do you guys look at it more as if, no, this is just our team this year?
There's a little bit of pressure, but it's expected from us just because of how good we've been in the past. But I wouldn't consider it pressure.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's fun, right? I mean,
Yeah, I'd say it's. I think I don't know if pressure is the right word. I think it's more expectation. I think that's the word I would use. I think it's just kind of expected. I think it's expected by them. I think it's expected by the coaches. I think now it's expected by the community. I think it's just expected that we go out and play well. Now, if that expectation leads to pressure, it could. I don't know, and that's probably individualized, I'd say.
What are the big games for you guys? Like when the schedule comes out, you're like, this is a big game. What are those teams?
Definitely Valley Catholic on the schedule this year, and Farmington always a hometown rival, so it's always fun to play them no matter where it's at.
I kind of thought it might be those three. I'm glad you guys play Farmington. I think that game's a blast. So
Yeah, you actually get to see us.
I know. I like that. I like doing that.
Exactly. I know your coach was talking about, sort of having a relationship with each other on the team and, just enjoying each other's company and kind of how that might translate into success. Do you guys hang out outside of football too?
Oh yeah, we sure do.
Yeah.
We go swim or go watch something or just hang out and just be around each other, building the team chemistry.
So how important is it, that you guys are friends off the field? Do you think that helps you out at all in the football field? In what ways?
for sure. I mean, we all play golf and stuff together, so that, and we all are a bunch of multi-athlete kids, and we all play a lot of sports the same way. We've hung out since middle school for sure.
Yeah. Tristan, what are you looking forward to most this Friday? I know you guys talked about, St. Jen's a big game. This is, an important conference game, a district game now too. What are you looking forward to?
Well, it's homecoming, so I want to go out there and put on a show for our fans and stuff. But just St. Jen, it's a rival game. I'm looking forward to playing them always, no matter what.
Is it a dress-up day that you guys do every single day this week for homecoming?
Yeah.
What's tomorrow?
I couldn't even tell you.
I think it's camo and pink or something like that.
All right, so you're a little into the festivities.
Where they
then.
get that from, we have no clue.
Yeah.
Tristan looks really good in pink, let me tell you.
Yeah? I'm sure. Well, guys, we appreciate talking to you. I think we got some other of your teammates that we're going to get to here. But, thanks. We're going to be broadcasting the game on Friday. Should be a fun one, all right? We're going to step aside for a minute here, then we'll come back on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. All right. We're always doing good in the neighborhood. The Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Maybe you're listening on the radio, streaming online at mymoinfo.com, or following along on Twitter as well. Just talked to a couple of talented players for the Central team, and now we're joined by a couple more. And Kason Murphy and Joe Bryant, a couple juniors, quarterback, and playmaker, I guess, is something that we'll go with. You do a little bit of everything, Job. What's your favorite way to score a touchdown?
Probably just any way I can, whatever play coach gives me. I mean, I like scoring touchdowns anyway.
He's a versatile player, coach. You can use him in a lot of different ways.
Oh, yeah. Like I always tell him when he's back there. What do I always tell you when you're back there on the punt?
Make a play.
I said, catch it, man. That's a weapon. Like, that's another offensive play if you just catch the punt. Like, don't let that thing bounce. Go get it. Yeah, we just want Joe with the ball in his hands. I mean, I know the goal going into the season was to try to get him, anywhere between 10 and 20 touches, however we could do it. But it's like last year, we've got a lot of playmakers and a lot of guys that need touches, and so we've had to talk. We got to spread the wealth, and it makes us harder to defend when we use everybody. So I think Job understands that, and if he could touch it 50 times a game, he would. I'm sure.
Job, did you play football growing up?
Yeah, I did.
But then you didn't in high school for a while, right?
I mean, I was planning on not to, and then I ended up. So I started. Yeah,
he's played since he's a freshman for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Caden Casey didn't,
okay.
and Hakeem
That's what I was
Wagner,
thinking of.
and
That's
Nathan
right.
Williams.
That's
Those three kind of took a year off, but Joe's been there the whole time.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Kason, for everyone listening right now, any coaches who may be listening, what's your favorite route to throw to Job?
Go ball. Let him go make a play.
Yeah, exactly. What have you learned, I guess, from being the quarterback of this team from week one? Has there been anything that you've really learned, since last week or since the game last week or even coming into practice this week?
I just think that leading this offense, we just got to – I don't even know.
It's a hard thing to think about. I guess, what have you enjoyed the most about being the quarterback for this team?
We just got so many playmakers. It's easy. The line creates big holes that I just got to run through, and the receivers are so good. They're open all the time. I just got to make the throws.
Yeah, well, I know that there's a lot of former quarterbacks that are on the coaching staff as well, and you got your coach Weiss. He's an offensive mastermind here. You got to learn from Jet Bridges playing quarterback last year too. How much of those guys, as a support system, been helping you to perform out on the field? Because your numbers, we can get into them, they're pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think we got 5 quarterbacks on the staff or something crazy like that, and it just makes it so easy for me because I can just learn from any of them, and they can all teach me great stuff, so it's really easy for me.
And I was wondering, since we know how good of a pitcher you are, you're the regional radio dream team pitcher, a baseball player of the year, you excel at that position. Does anything from being a pitcher sort of translate over into being a quarterback?
I wouldn't really say pitching does, but throwing a baseball, like you throw it on the run quite a bit, so like throwing on the run transfers to football because pitching is a different onslaught. Like baseball, I throw it lower. For you, it's not going to be a spiral, so yeah.
Yeah. On the topic of playing other sports, Job, we know how good of a basketball player you are. It feels like you're confident out there, like you feel like you can get any bucket anytime, you can make any pass at any time. Where does that confidence sort of come from?
Probably just like the work I know I've put in. I just countless hours on the field. My confidence just really comes from myself.
Play defense too?
Yeah, I do, for sure. I play safety.
He's a pick 6 guy.
Yeah.
Both of these guys are our 2 safeties here, so and they've been starting at safety since freshman and
I started a couple games.
Couple games as a freshman, and he started all year as a freshman. So, so it's nice having those guys in the back end of our defense because they kind of know how the whole thing works. We talk about them a lot of times on offense, but we knew when we got these guys back defensively, we didn't have to worry about a whole lot from the back end point of view. Coverage wise, we can mix coverages, we can match coverages, we can do it on the fly. We can do a lot of stuff because these two have a lot of experience back there.
What's more complicated to understand, guys, the offense or the defense by the coaches?
Probably, I'd say probably offense.
Yeah.
Defense, Coach Jones they're both really good coaches, obviously, but Coach Jones makes it really easy to get defense.
Coach talks about your intelligence a lot when we talk to him, and how much are you doing, kind of like mentally as you're getting ready for the play? Are Are you checking off, or do you have the ability to check from one play to another? What are you diagnosing?
Yeah, like I can see like blitzes, change pass protection maybe, or if I see like a outside backer blitzing, I can, if it's a run play, I can just throw a quick out to our slot, and I think that really helps with being smart, just remembering everything.
Yeah.
Coach, was it hard to play a quarterback on the defensive side of the ball too? Jet played defense, didn't he?
Jet did not.
Okay.
Jake did. Jace did. Dylan did not. Jet did not. But it's just a lot of times it depends on what else we have around. I mean, I think last year we didn't need Jet on the defense. Jet could have played safety for us, but we didn't really need Jet to be back there. And when Jake played, we needed Jake to be back there. Same way now. I feel like Kaysen's experience back there is so valuable. See, he started back there when Jet was the quarterback, and now he's had a couple years experience. It's hard to take a guy out of defense that's got that experience back there because he already knows kind of how the whole defense works. But I think, with the ability of Cannon Harlow, he's one of our best corners. He's a really good player. But with flexibility, I think if Kaysen does need to come out, or if I need to talk to him offensively or something, we can move Kaysen over to safety and we could put another corner in there. Now, hopefully once we get Jackson back, that might free up Kendall maybe to play a little corner. And that would give us a little bit more time to get these guys a little blow on defense possibly, because right now we're trying to get everybody their blows on offense because we want to keep our best defensive guys out there. So we're doing a lot more rotation on offense. We're doing rotation with skills on offense, and we're doing rotation with our bigs on defense. So that's kind of how we're trying to keep people fresh.
Yeah. Chad asked this to your teammates before, but when the schedule comes out at the beginning of the season, what are some of those games that you guys are kind of circling?
St. John, Valley, and Farmington are the main three.
Everybody,
same thing.
Yeah.
Of course, those are the main three. But other than that,
Obviously, the Class 5 schools that we added this year, we were looking into them as big games, but I mean, we played really well in those games, so I mean, they weren't that big of games.
Does Valley and St. John, is it amplified even more this year because now Valley's part of the conference? St. John, Valley, you guys all in the same district too. So does that ratchet it up even more?
It definitely makes it on a bigger scale than normal. I mean, this is the first time we played Valley in I don't know how many years, but it'll be a really big game, I think.
Something that we're really looking forward to. I know it's something that a lot of people outside of the school districts have been talking about, a game that they've been wanting to see for a long time.
But we don't want to worry about Valley yet.
No, yeah.
What was the last year, Corey? You mentioned it earlier. Last year you played Valley.
So 2004, 5, I would say probably maybe 2007.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
I think is when the last year we played them.
Even though we're not talking about it.
Even though we're not talking about
right.
it.
Not talking about that. That's. I was talking to Coach Pope earlier today. I brought it up. He's like, "No, we're not talking about that game yet."
Yeah. We need to talk about St. John. We need to focus on St. John, right, guys?
Yes. So, how much are you guys looking forward to this game then, against St. Genevieve again? Going off of Chad, district conference game.
yeah, it's those games, and it's also homecoming. Like Coach Weiss says, the night's not going to be fun if we lose, so we got to win the game to make homecoming fun. So it just adds that much more into it. So it's a big game everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys noticed a bigger crowd out there for homecoming games in the past?
For sure. It's always a big deal. Everybody comes out.
Yeah. Do you like playing in front of big crowds?
Yeah, definitely. I think it makes the game way more exciting.
Yeah. I think it's going to be very, very exciting. Well, I think, Chad, unless you got any more questions for some of these guys.
No, sounds good.
Yeah. Did you guys enjoy the food?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What'd you get?
4 cheese, mac and cheese, honey pepper chicken.
Yeah, that's the good move. Job?
The quesadilla burger with some mac and cheese on the side. So it's pretty good.
Can't go wrong with it at all. Fellas, appreciate you talking with us. Good luck on Friday, all right?
Thank you.
All right. Kason Murphy, Joe Bryan joining us on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. We're back with more on J98. Welcome back into the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98, streaming online at mymoinfo.com and following along on Twitter as well. We appreciate everyone joining us, however that may be. Always great to bring on, coach players, and we still got the coach joining us, but some really good kids. Sounded, we heard the comments from Braden Berry from Farmington earlier tonight. Those kids, they just seem humble. They're excited to be out there and like they're enjoying life. So
I got a question. And Coach, do they have any media training? Because these kids are just so well spoken. Like, do they have
I think a lot of it has to do with what they talked about earlier. I think they watch it. I mean, they watch it and then they see it on, they watch interviews and they see it and they kind of know how it's supposed to work. Like you compliment your teammates, you compliment your opponent. I mean, it's all that stuff. I'm probably against. I probably go against the mold probably more than anybody does. But sometimes I just get to start rambling and stuff.
Yeah, well, it was a great conversation we had with the kids. We're going to broadcast that game on J98. We'll have a little more discussion on that. But let's go through the rest of the Week 5 football schedule. A lot of talk about Valley Catholic. Not going to talk about them much more besides the fact that they're playing St. Vincent on Friday. Homecoming game for Valley Catholic and one of the oldest rivalries I think that we have around the area between St. Vincent and Valley. I think Judd said they've been playing since like the 1920s.
And he said sometimes way back when they'd play like 2 or 3 times a year even.
Yeah.
So
was that a big one when you were playing at Valley?
It was a big one. I think so back then, like I said, they were in the same conference and we were all Class 1 back then.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was Class 3 and Class 4, but St. Vincent and us were 2 Class 1 teams. And I remember the year after we graduated, when Judd was a junior, St. Vincent actually beat Valley. And I don't know if they won the state championship that year or not, but then the next year Valley won the state championship again. So Valley won the state championship. It would have been 6 out of 7 years, but the year in between there, St. Vincent knocked them off in the districts. And St. Vincent went on a little run there when Valley was down in the late 90s or early 2000s there. And St. Vincent did, I think Coach Winkler was there at the time, and I think they won some state championships. I don't know if they won multiple, but I know they won at least one in that stretch. And so St. Vincent's had some good teams over the year. They always play hard. They're very similar, and I heard Judd say this on his interview. They're very similar to Valley as far as a parochial school in a town. They're kind of you got Perryville and St. John, but Valley kids are all from St. John County, and Perryville, St. Vincent kids are all from Perry County. So they don't draw. They don't draw outside of those counties or outside of those school districts, but when they're Class 1. They still had a little bit of an advantage, and I can say that coming from there. I didn't see it back then, but I see it because they're pulling from a Class 4 district size. You know what I mean? Whereas a lot of those smaller Class 1 schools, they're so rural that there's just one school in that town, so it's a small town. But Valley's pulling from a bigger town, and then they get a lot of the better kids. Not better. I'm not saying they're better than St. John kids. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. But
you're getting some of the top athletes from the Class 4 sized population.
If the parents are paying tuition for kids to go to school, they care about their education. Yeah. So all those kids that Judd gets, they have parents invested in what they're doing. And, unfortunately we can't say that at public schools. I wish we could. It would be a lot better if we could say that, but that's not always the case for us.
Yeah, and this is a game, that's going to be very exciting because they're both 4-0. St. Vincent's Class 1, they're ranked 7th, I think, in the state. Valley ranked 5th in the state in Class 3, though they are the size, of a Class 1 school. I'm very interested to see how St. Vincent will match up against Valley Catholic in this game, something that I'm looking forward to. Staying in the MAFC White Division, Fredericktown taking on Potosi. A couple of 1-3 teams are going to be battling at Potosi. In this game, teams that are trying to rebound from, I think, 3 straight losses for both Fredericktown and Potosi. Windsor DeSoto, MAFC Red Divisional game, 2-2 Owls versus the 1-3 Dragons. North County, they're taking on Battle. I don't know much about Battle, but that game will be played in Bonne Terre, the 3-1 North County Raiders versus 1-3 Battle out of Columbia, Missouri. Another very exciting I-55 game, alluded to it earlier in the broadcast. Herculaneum and St. Pius, 2 3-1 teams that are playing some very strong football right now. We'll see how that one plays out. Jefferson is at Bayless, a couple of 1-3 teams in the I-55. Grandview, 2-2, hosting 1-3 Perryville. We got Marquette taking on Northwest. The Lions looking for their first win of the season. And then Fox is going to be hosting Seckman in an always very fun C6 showdown. Fox is Class 5 this year, Seckman Class 6, but still a long-standing rivalry. Seckman won last year for the first time in 14 seasons. I believe I have that right. So excited to see how that plays out. And then Crystal City, they're looking to stay undefeated against Gateway Legacy. That game has a 6 p.m. kickoff on Friday. On to the broadcast games on AM 1400 KJEF. We'll see the Hillsboro Hawks again as they're hosting Festus. 2-2 Tigers versus the 4-0 Hillsboro Hawks. Festus now winning the games in a row after facing St. Genevieve, and then the team that we're not going to be mentioning anymore throughout this broadcast.
Like
So, yeah, you don't speak about it just yet. That is a game that I'm excited to see because we know that Festus, it's a tough first couple of games that they have. Now they rebound, kind of get their feet under them. Going up against who I think is one of the better teams in the area in Hillsboro, this is going to be a really good game. AM 1400 KJEF that night. So we broke down Hillsboro as much as we could in a little bit of Festus here.
These are two teams last year that played close each and every single time. And Festus has a team that if they can get hot, they can really compete with teams like Hillsboro. So I'm excited for that game too. I think Festus has a really good offense. They're just got some young guys playing that quarterback position, Jeremiah Cunningham and Essian Smith.
Yep.
You circle that game. That's going to be a good one.
I think Cunningham was 5 of 5 passing last Friday, Coach.
Yeah, I like that game. One of the inside things of that game is Coach Schmidt, who was the head coach at Festus for a lot of years, is now coaching over at Hillsboro. So I know that's always a big game. Coach Schmidt's one of my good friends. I've learned a lot from him as far as what I was talking about earlier and the relationship aspect of it and community service aspect of what he did when he was Festus head coach. And I've got a lot of respect for that man. And I know that's a big game for him, going from the Hillsboro perspective. Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I know that they care very much about that game up there. That's on AM 1400 KJEF Friday night. On AM 800 KREI, the Farmington Knights taking on TDW Prep Academy. 6:30 kickoff for that game. What do we know about TDW?
The one thing that we know about TDW is that we don't know anything about TDW Academy so far. It's an interesting game. I mean, you go in, especially for Farmington, Coach Kruppe, you really don't know what to expect. I have no idea what to expect. So you kind of see how your team does in that type of environment. So I guess it could be a little exciting.
So Chad, how'd that game come about? Like, I've never heard of this.
So Farmington, they just kind of went into one of those black holes, in their schedule where everybody's playing conference games and they're not during that week, and nobody. So this was a kind of a new, how that happens in the city sometimes, a new team that forms up, and so they couldn't find anybody, and they're like, okay, well, we have a date, let's play it. Well, earlier in the last couple of weeks, when TD hasn't even played a full schedule. I mean, they played
one game,
Normandy, and they lost, and they were supposed to have played this last weekend, and we'll have to ask Coach Kruppe because they just don't. They don't record anything with Misha. They don't. They're a bit of a mystery, and so anyway, Farmington was unsure really, even if they were going to play the game. They were supposed to have played on this coming Saturday, and then there was no communication, and finally they got a hold of somebody, and they said, "Oh yeah, no, we're going to play. And by the way, we've been meaning to call you. We're going to play Friday night." So that's kind of where it stands right now.
It's like the regional radio version of Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah.
But
you ever found yourself in a situation like that, Coach?
So during the COVID years, we went, teams would get COVID on a Wednesday or a Thursday. And so we ended up having to play Windsor. We ended up playing Seckman that year. I think we ended up playing East Prairie that year. And there was another one, I think maybe Scott City. I think we ended up with 4 games that weren't on our schedule originally, and some of them were as late as Thursday. And that's,
there were teams calling other teams late Friday.
Yeah, the day of the game. Yeah, that was a crazy year. Yeah. So that typically doesn't happen. I think there was a 1 year that Confluence, I think we had a game scheduled with Confluence, and we had to try to find a game, and I can't remember what happened that year, but we were searching, because you don't want your kids to go. I mean, football, you only play so many games. You don't want your kids to go a week without playing. I mean, it's kind of a bummer. I mean, you put a lot of work in during the course of a week to get ready for a game. And when you don't have a game, it's kind of like, it's kind of like getting a bye, the last couple of years. That's been a weird deal. And, we've been giving our kids like a couple days off, and which, I mean, you don't really want to give your kids weeks of days off in this time of the year. You still are trying to get a lot better, and at the end of a regular season and you got to buy it in district time, I think it's kind of a good time. I mean, you got everything in to give the kids a day or two off, but you don't want to be giving them days or twos off now when you're still trying to improve. So
what do you do when you don't know anything then about, like, is it just say, guys, line up on our base, play your responsibilities as the game goes along, we'll find other way.
I'll tell you the hardest one was Seckman, because a couple years ago, Rubel was a sophomore. We knew that they were getting good, but we didn't know really what they were doing. Like, we didn't know we were playing them until Thursday after we already kind of practiced. And it was one of those things like, okay, I mean, with base defense, all you can do, you can just run your base stuff. Like, you don't have game prep. So now we got some film on them after we had already done our practices, and you're like, oh crap, like, how are we going to defend this like with no practice? And
their offense was so different than everybody else.
That's what I mean. It was so untraditional, and we were pretty good that year. I mean, that's when we had that good group as juniors. Jet and Deshaun, those guys were juniors. We were really good. I mean, our only loss was to Seckman and to Cardinal Ritter that year, and Luther Burton was on that team. So when we played Seckman, and it was a really good game, I think it was 39-37 or something like that. And we scored in the last play, which we thought won it, but we had an illegal man downfield, and so all the people had to come off the field, and so we ended up losing. But it was a really fun game. But Seckman, Rubel ran for like 400 against us. Like, we didn't know. Like, we didn't know what I don't know. It's not something you can do in the middle of a game or like without any practice. Like, you can try to have them shift, and so we'd have them shift, and then they'd run back against. It was bad. So yeah, no prep sucks. I'm just saying.
So TDW, they are the Jaguars. We know that too, and I think they play behind Sumner High School in St. Louis. 0-1, 0-2. Do we know something along the? All right, 0-1. We'll go with it. Again, that game is a 6:30 kickoff on Friday on AM 800 KREI. The J98 game of the week. Well, we've done a lot of breaking down this one. St. Genevieve at Central, homecoming for the Rebels. Coach, I think we've asked you almost every question in the book about this game. I don't really know what else there is to cover. I think we asked the kids how excited they are. Do you get excited as a coach, for football games?
I do. This is one of those games I always look forward to. When I started coaching at Central as an assistant, I think St. Gen had beat us 15 straight years. And then, so I started coaching in 2000, and it was 2010 before we beat them at any point. So they had beat us 25 straight times. I know I heard you guys talking about Seckman and Fox. So St. Gen, they were on that really tremendous run there for a long time. And Central was, be honest, Central was not good in the 90s. And we had some good years in the early 2000s. But St. Gen was really good at that time. And so we went 25 years without beating them. So there will never be a time while I'm a coach that I won't look forward to beating St. Gen. Because I had to hear that every interview for 10 years, and it just got old. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. Like, but it was like, once you got over that hurdle, it was like your kids were beat before the game started. When you hear that they beat you 20 straight times, 21 straight times, 22 straight times, your kids are almost beat before the game starts. And then when we beat them, it was like it all went away. And then it was like we expected to win. And then, now we've been able to kind of hold our own. And, for the last 12 years, we've probably played them, I don't know, 16, 17 times, because we played them twice a year a lot of times. And I think we beat them pretty much every year. They beat us sometimes, but we beat them the same year. Like, we'd split. Like, we'd beat them, they'd beat us. So there's several years in there that they were, they were probably a better team than us, and we were able to get them because our expectation was to win. And I think, there were probably some teams in those 25 years that we were probably better than they were, but because of the mindset, it's a mindset. And I think right now our kids expect to win a football game. Now, I'm sure St. Gen's kids will say they expect to win the football game, but still, we've kind of had their number. And I know Coach Pope will probably play this to his kids that I'm saying this, but it's true. That's just kind of part of it. So our kids will expect to win, and their kids will expect to win. We both have, I know Coach Pope has respect for our program. We have respect for their program. It makes it fun. So I'm looking forward to it for sure. I love these kind of games.
Yeah, I mean, that sums up pretty much our feelings about the game. You heard it from the coach himself. It's going to be a fun one, going to be exciting, going to be physical, and it's going to be the J98 game of the week. That's going to wrap up everything on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable tonight. We went a little long, but I think it was all for the better of us. We all got a little bit smarter, and we all learned a little bit something about football tonight. Coach, appreciate you as always. We love having you on the show.
I appreciate it. I enjoy this kind of stuff. It's fun. So anytime we can kind of advertise our kids, I think it's good for our program. So I appreciate you guys doing this for us.
Yeah, and some great kids that we got to talk to. You'll be able to listen back to this at mymoinfo.com sometime tomorrow. For Garrett Davenport, Chad Speaker, Corey Schweiss and the Central Rebels, and Michael Capias engineering things back in our regional radio studios, I'm Griffin Weinberg signing off from the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98.
Go Rebels.
Perfect.